a skill that requires a lot of patience and practice to master. No matter what design is being done, starting with a properly fitted and filled bag is important. This piping bag will be in your hands sometimes for hours, so be sure not to overfill it to start off. Trends change constantly, but there are several timeless and basic piping techniques that decorators use every day. First off, one of the simplest to pipe are beads. These are used primarily around the edges of the base of a cake. To start making beads, fit a bag with a round tip. Fill your bag, but not too full, enough that you can grab it in your hands and squeeze efficiently with your full palm of your hand, making sure that the bag is twisted well and in the crook of your hand. So when you're holding the bag, you want to have it at a 45-degree angle from the surface of your cake. Squeezing with even and gentle pressure until it comes out like a bulb. Stop squeezing and pull away. Don't break the connection and then squeeze again. It takes practice to get the right amount of pressure and speed. Twist and force the buttercream down into the bottom of the bag as you are finishing up the lines. Always keep the pressure moving forward. Next up are shells. Shells make excellent borders. For starting shells, start with a bag fitted with a star tip. There are two kinds of star tips. There's the open star, like this one, which has a straight point to it, and then there's a closed star, which covers over the top a little bit. Both make beautiful star borders or scroll borders. For this, you want to make sure the bag is full but not overfull, and then you also turn the bag, make sure it's nice and tight in your hand so all the pressure will be pushing the buttercream forward through the front of the tip. We'll be holding the bag at about a 45-degree angle from the surface, squeezing with a gentle, even pressure, and then releasing as we drag it to make it look like a nice shell shape. So at the beginning, you want to squeeze, push back just a little bit and up, and then pull down, release your pressure, and then drag it. You build the next shell right on top of the tail of the previous one. Go up, back, and down. Up and down. Scrolls are an intermediate technique that can be straight and uniform or could be more free-form. To begin making a basic scroll, fit a bag with a star tip. You can use any size star tip or any kind of star tip, similar to making shells. We can start with following one direction. We'll go in a line. Again, holding the bag somewhat vertical but with a slight angle. A little bit of pressure. Squeeze, 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 and stop and pull. And that way we get a nice tail. Then we can start right next to where the tail let off. Squeeze and curl, drag, and release. And we can turn and go the other opposite direction. Sometimes you may find that you're more adept in one direction than the other. It just takes practice to get better. Then we can put them together, going one direction and then reversing in the opposite direction for the following one. We can even bring a little more curl into it. This looks especially elegant. Then we can put these two shapes together with the shell and make a fleur-de-lis. We'll start with left going in, make a curl, Give a little space, come around to the right, coming in, and then from the center over the top, make your shell border pattern, dragging down through the center. Let's see, we can do other patterns very similar. We can do one like a C shape, sort of like a smile, curling in, bringing it to the center, opposite direction. Roses are a classic addition to a cake and require some practice to shape. To tie all the techniques together, I'll demonstrate a basic birthday cake decorated with roses. You want to use a rose tip, which has a teardrop type shape but with straight sides. You're going to hold the bag, of course, tightened up in your hand, so we'll be squeezing with our palm. And the widest part of the tip will be at the bottom. So it goes narrow and then wide towards the bottom with a very straight tip. This is a flower nail, and we'll be building the flowers on top of the nail and then transferring them on top of the cake. To start off with the rose, you want to build a little bit of buttercream on the base first. And this is like a mini turntable for your fingers. So you'll roll it back and forth and use that to spin while you're using your hands to create the rose. So first we'll spin and build up a little buttercream on the bottom. You might do that a couple of times. That way when we lift the rose off of the nail, we won't be digging into the flower itself. Then we build starting with the center of the flower or the rose bud. So holding the bag steady and then spinning your fingers, you can go usually in a clockwise direction. Holding the bag touching the mound that you built, and then spinning and piping, squeezing, and then dragging it down. If it gets a little off center, just give it a little slight wiggle until it stands back nice and straight. Then we want to build the next set of petals. Usually you're going to build in odd numbers, so you will typically use 3 small petals wrapping around the initial rose bud. The motion for this is going to be something like a rainbow shape. While I turn at the same time with my fingers, I'll be lifting and rounding, going around the center of the rose bud. So touching the flower at the bottom, making good contact, turning slowly, and then dragging down. Then we start right where the other one left off, overlapping slightly so it stays nice and tight. Again, pipe and turn, lift and drag, keeping the bud kind of tight. The petals will open up later on. The great thing with the flowers is if you don't like this and it doesn't turn out well, scrape it off, start all over again. Keep practicing. So the next row, similar pattern. We're going to go to more like a 5 petal. So it will open up just a little bit more, and to get that to open, you can just pull your wrist backwards a little bit, open the tip, and then the petals will start to open out and downwards. Similar rainbow while I'm turning, overlapping till we get another pattern, and then we're going to tuck another row underneath. This time you kind of angle the rose nail outwards away from you so you can get underneath there, and again usually working in odd numbers. The petals may be a little bit of a smaller rainbow. You want to make sure your buttercream is firm enough that it stays in place. And then the petals are opening up and down. To place the rose on the cake, to give it a nice lifelike look to it so it isn't sitting flat, we're going to build a little mound with some plain white buttercream so it blends in with the background, and then we'll drop the rose on there. One way to transfer a rose is to use a pair of scissors. We'll get in underneath the flower, cut it, and then lift it and drop it on top of that little mound. slide it off. You may need a small knife or offset spatula or even a bamboo skewer to help you place it and drop it cleanly. Close the scissors, pull backwards, and try and drop it cleanly. Maybe touch it up a little. After placing the roses, it's time to add in filler flowers and other decorative elements to make a beautiful arrangement, leaving a little room for our inscription. We're going to write happy birthday with our piping bag last. With star tips, it's just the amount of pressure that you squeeze. You can control the size of the star or decoration that you're placing. So squeeze a little longer, it'll come out a little fatter and spread a little more. Pull up a little faster, you can get some points depending on the type of design that you're looking for. You might also have the same color in two different types of tips or different size tips, whether they're plain or star tips. That way you can again have a nice arrangement and good balance to your design. Next, we're going to make the happy birthday inscription. I'm using a paper cornet. Make sure you have a rather small tip cut, and you can always cut more off. You don't want to have a very heavy line on the cake. Keep it nice and clean and elegant. Practice your handwriting off of the cake so that you feel confident. Once you get on top of the cake, there's very difficult to take it away and make corrections. You're going to use your thumb for your pressure with your fingers on the other side. Your opposite hand will be not using for pressure but for guiding, so you have a nice steady flow. Cursive writing does have a beautiful appearance and is easier actually to do than a print where you have to stop and start. It's much smoother and more elegant to do a cursive writing, so it does take practice to get good at that as well. Nice even pressure. And even spell it in your head or even say it out loud so you don't forget a letter. H-A-P-P-Y. B-I-R-T-H-D-A-Y. Don't forget to dot the I, cross the T, and you're done. Each icing has their drawbacks and advantages for decorating due to their texture. French or Italian buttercream work great for beads, but can be more difficult for shaping roses. An American or decorator's buttercream is excellent for roses and scrolls. Most cakes use the same decorative icing throughout the cake. However, in some cases, for example, just the roses may be a different type of icing. As with many things, practice makes perfect. Continue to repeat piping exercises until all the motions become fluid and natural. Piping takes time to feel comfortable with, but over time it will become easier, faster, and every decorated product will benefit from the investment in your skills.